Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to day one of our workshop, Navigating Arranged Marriage. So, thank you so much for taking out the time to join us today. Whether you're single, engaged, or already married, this session is for you. Now, arranged marriage can bring a mix of feelings that could be, excitement, pressure, questions, and all of that is completely normal. So, today we're just here to understand things better and make the journey a little easier and clearer for you, right? So, thank you for being here and giving yourself this time. Let's get started. Right. So, before we begin, I would love for you to meet your host for today. First, we have Sanjeevni. Sanjeevni, over to you for a quick introduction.
Right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining today's workshop. My name is Sanjeevni. I've completed Masters in Clinical Psychology and I work at MindTribe as a psychologist. I specialize in areas such as anxiety, overthinking, relationship concerns, narcissistic abuse, and sleep concerns. So, I hope this workshop helps you feel more prepared and more confident in understanding your own journey when it comes to marriage. Over to you, Simran.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Simran Kapoor, and I am a junior psychologist here at MindTribe. I have previously done my master's in clinical and health psychology. As a counselor, I have supported people with depression, anxiety, relationship issues, and other challenges, and I strive to make the therapeutic space a safe and non judgmental one. And I hope you get to take a lot of things away from the 2 day workshop that we're doing today and tomorrow. And hope you have a great time with us. Over to you, Ahil.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ahil Bose, and I'm a junior psychologist here at MindTribe. I have completed my master's in applied psychology, and as a counselor, my specialties include dealing with self-esteem issues, stress, depression, OCD, emotional regulation, and whatnot. Thank you so much for joining here as a part of this 2 day workshop, and I hope you have a great time and you gain a lot of insights. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anupama Vinod. I work as a psychologist here at MindTribe. I've done my master's in clinical psychology and I have been practicing for more than a year now. I have supported clients dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, and self doubt. And in my sessions, I focus on helping people understand themselves better and grow one step at a time. And I'll be helping facilitate today's session along with the team. All right. Now, before we begin, let's just look at a few ground rules to help us have a very smooth session, right? So please keep your mics and cameras off unless you're asked to speak up, right? If you'd like to share something, please use the raise hand option, or you can also type out your thoughts or questions into the chat box. Let's all maintain decorum and respect for each other's experiences and opinions. And please also note that the session is being recorded. All right. And for the disclaimer, recording, transcribing, or capturing any part of this workshop is strictly prohibited. This includes the use of transcription tools, screen recording, screenshots, or any other form of documentation. The content shared in this session is the intellectual property of MindTribe. And please note that the violation of this policy may result in removal from the session to protect the confidentiality of the group. All right. Moving on, let's just start with a quick icebreaker to warm up, right? So when you hear the word marriage, what's the first word that comes to your mind? You can either drop it in the chat box or you can use the raise hand option if you want to share it to all of us, right? There are no right or wrong answers, just whatever pops into your head first. All right. Sri Lakshmi says responsibility. Mansi says companionship. Work every day. Shweta says values. Nancy says love. Chandana says partner. Neetu says commitment. Shivani says partnership. Kajal says responsibilities and adjustment. Right. Okay. Head says efforts, shared responsibilities, long term commitment. Okay. I see another commitment. Okay. There's quite a lot of commitment. Companionship. Right. Loyalty. Okay, Rishika says soulmates. Right. There's quite a lot of responses, different types. I love seeing all these different words coming in. And it's also interesting how each of us has our own meaning, experience, or expectation attached to the word marriage, right? So, this is exactly why we're here today to explore these ideas with more clarity and more openness. All right, moving on, we will look at into what is arranged marriage, right? So, an arranged marriage is where families or elders take the lead in finding a suitable partner for you, right? They usually consider things like family background, values, education, lifestyle, and overall compatibility between the two families. Now, traditionally, arranged marriage was seen as a way to create stability, to keep, culture, the traditions alive, and to build strong family connections, right? And in many families, it was believed that the elders have more experience and can guide the younger generation towards a suitable partner, right? And in today's time, arranged marriage is still practiced widely, but the process has changed slightly, right? Nowadays, many people have more choice, more conversations, and more time to get to know the person before saying yes, right? So it's becoming a mix of, family support as well as individual choice. All right, next, we have how practices vary across regions, right? So arranged marriage might, follow the same overall idea, but the way it is practiced can be quite different from one family to another, right? Now these differences come from lifestyle, it could come from traditions, comfort levels, and also personal beliefs. So some families may use specific criteria when they're looking for a suitable partner or a match, right? Now this can include education, career, family, personality, or even the socioeconomic background of the person, right? And also, for many, horoscope matching is an important step, and they only move forward if the charts match very well. And for others, sharing the same religion or faith matters because it makes the day-to-day life and long-term expectations more clearer. Now, the process of meeting can also vary, right? Some people prefer a formal first meeting where everyone sits together and talks. Others choose a more relaxed setting, like maybe like a simple lunch, a video call, or a casual conversation, so the two people can feel more comfortable. And in some cases, the couple gets private time, you know, right away to talk, while in others, the family has the conversations first. Few conversations are with the family, and then the couple gets to have. Now, it's not just the way they meet, even the decision making style is different across families. Now, some families give full freedom to the individuals and, simply help with the search. Others might take a more active role by checking, the initial compatibility and, sharing their suggestions. And in a lot of families today, it's a mix. The elders guide the process, but the final decision is made by the two people involved. And the rituals also around the process also differ, right? Some families exchange basic details before any meeting, while others prefer to meet first and talk naturally about the details. And some might even do a formal proposal or a ceremony once things feel positive, while others keep it very simple and private. So, even though arranged marriage has a common foundation, the way people approach it, that is, the criteria, the meetings, the conversations, and decisions, can look very different depending on the family style, comfort, and personal beliefs. Next, we look at evolving perspectives. So, the first approach we look at is basically the traditional approach. So, when we look at arranged marriage from a traditional point of view, the process is quite structured and mostly handled by the elders in the family, right? So, in the traditional approach, matchmaking was done almost entirely by parents or the older relatives in the family, right? They would take the responsibility for finding a suitable partner, usually based on the specific criteria that they have. And these criteria was basically seen as important for long-term stability according to the family. And in such approaches, the couple usually had limited choice in the process. They were usually introduced to someone only after the families felt the match was suitable. And because of this, they didn't always get a lot of time to talk or get to know each other, right? Now, the courtship period, which is basically the time between meeting and marriage, would be quite short in the traditional approach. And again, the decision making was also more family led. The elders believed that they knew what was best, and the approval by the elders carried a lot of weight. And the couple's role was comparatively smaller when you look at today. And another aspect of traditional approach was having more structured gender roles, right? Expectations were usually more defined. That is, what the man's role should be, what the woman's role should be, and how responsibilities would be divided after marriage. So, this sort of a traditional model is still followed in some families, but many parts of it are changing today as people want more involvement and more balance. Next, we have the modern approach. So, in the modern approach to arranged marriage, the style has changed a lot. Families may still help with introductions, but it's no longer an imposition. So, here the couple gets more space, more choice, and more say in the whole process. And yeah, in such modern approaches, people use apps, matrimonial sites, or even social media to find potential matches, right? Families, support the search, but the individual decide if they want to move forward. Now, over here, there is a more stronger focus on compatibility, right? People look at things like personality, communication style, or the values, lifestyle, or when it comes to, emotional comfort, whether the two people can get along well in daily life, right? So this is more of the focus in the modern approach. And the courtship period is usually longer too, right? Couples talk more, they meet more, and they take time to understand each other before making any decision. Now, this helps them to feel more confident and more prepared. And also, in the modern approach, decision making is shared. Families may guide and support, but the final yes or no comes from the couple. Now, roles inside the relationship also look more flexible today. There's more room for equal responsibilities, shared expectations, and conversations about what exactly both partners want from the marriage. Right? Right. Moving on. Next, yeah. So today, many families follow a middle path, right, which is the blended style, which is a big mix of both, traditional and modern styles. So, in such blended approaches, families still help with introductions, but the couple gets enough time, space, and freedom to talk, meet, and make their own decision. So, it's supportive, but not exactly controlling. And some traditional filters like religion, culture, or family values may still be considered, but they are not the only focus. And personal compatibility, comfort, communication, and long term expectations are given much more importance. And another change that we're seeing is that many people are even open to using counseling or coaching, which would help the couples understand each other better, manage expectations better, and even build healthier relationships, whether before marriage or after. So, the blended approach combines the best of both worlds, the support of the family as well as the freedom of the individual choice. Next, over to you, Sanjeevi.
Right. Thank you, Anupama. So I'll now take up this section on the realities of arranged marriage. Arranged marriage today is a mix of traditions, family expectations, and personal choice, right? But it also offers support and structure, and it also brings a bit of pressure as well, right? So, in this section, we'll look at what really happens behind the scenes and what individuals often navigate in the process. Next slide, please. Okay. So before we begin, let's quickly pause and reflect. When you think about marriage, whose expectations feel heavier in your life? Is it your family's expectations or your own? You can let me know in the chat box. Kanvi says my own. Yes. Right. Vani says both. Both. Right, Nancy. Nancy says family. Irina says both in different ways. Correct. Right. My own both. Right. This instinctive answer tells us a lot, right? As you can see, some say both, some say family, some say own, right? So many arranged marriage decisions, they stem from this exact tension, right? Wanting to honor family values while also wanting personal fulfillment, right? So this reflection forms the foundation of what we'll discuss today. Next slide, please. Right. So in arranged marriages, two parallel forces operate. First, it's family expectations. The other one is individual expectations. So if we talk about family expectations, they often revolve around reputation, cultural fit, financial stability, caste or religion, and long-term family harmony, right? But individual expectations, they focus more on emotional connection, shared interests, compatibility, personal goals, and independence. So conflict emerges when one side dominates the other. For example, when family preferences overshadow personal comfort, or when personal desires disregard family realities, right? So, healthy arranged marriage usually finds a middle path where both are respected. Next slide, please. Right. So, now let's talk about the role of parents, elders, and community. So, in most arranged marriage system, parents and elders, they hold four major roles. First, they act as gatekeepers. That is, they filter and decide who is considered as a eligible match, right? And they also act as connectors, where they reach potential partners through extended family or matchmakers or matrimonial sites or through social networks, right? So they act as connectors, and they also act as custodians of honor, where they feel responsible for protecting the family reputation during the marriage process. And finally, they act as the evaluators of fit, means they assess whether both families align culturally, financially, socially, and morally. So when these roles are rooted in care and tradition, they can also be bring unintentional restrict, or they create pressure, right? So navigating this respectfully but firmly becomes very essential. Someone raise their hand. Please go ahead. Does someone have a question here? Yes, community, the caste, the society, right? Exactly. So they're very selective about who to choose, who is the eligible match, right? Next slide, please. Right. So the key aspect of arranged marriage is understanding how much voice individuals have in choosing their partner, right? That's something very important. So some families, they allow full veto power, while others, they expect compliance. So this means in some households, individuals have absolute freedom to reject a match, but in others, the expectation is to agree with the family's choice. In turn, this is creating pressure to say yes, right? And the other one is autonomy and decision making often differs by gender. So gender plays a huge role here. Men, they are often given more space to express preferences, while women, they face greater scrutiny, or restrictions or expectations, to compromise. So, men have kind of an upper hand here, you can say. And nowadays, semi arranged marriage, they're rising, where individuals first meet and the families approve later. So, this modern approach blends personal choice with family involvement, giving the couple time to talk, understand each other, and take the relationship forward with their family support. Right? So, next slide. Right. So now we'll talk about the rush timelines and the speed of decision making, right? Because this is one huge challenge with the couple face, right? Like in many cases, the couples meet a handful of times, maybe over coffee or video call or have a family lunch, right? And they're expected to decide a lifelong partnership just over these meetings, right? So the pressure to decide quickly usually comes from age considerations, family concerns, social judgment, or fear of missing out on a good match, right? And in this process, emotional readiness, right, that is often overlooked. That is understanding oneself, one's values, and compatibility. So these get overlooked in this rush, leading to future conflicts, right? So this is something we need to focus on. Next slide. Right. So this is an important section we need to talk about. That is the pressure points in the process, because arranged marriages come from certain pressure points that can heavily influence the decisions. First, we'll talk about rituals and ceremonies. So rituals and ceremonies, they carry deep cultural meaning, right? They symbolize tradition and family pride. But the expectations around grand celebrations, multiple functions, and social display, they can put enormous financial pressure on both the families, right? Another pressure point is financial expectations or dowry, right? So despite being illegal, dowry and financial demands, they still exist in many families in India, right? So this creates stress, power imbalance, and sometimes exploitation, right? So these expectations can overshadow compatibility and reduce the marriage to just a transactional arrangement, right? Which is not right. And then there is timeline for children. Women especially, they face enormous pressure to plan marriage quickly due to age related expectations around fertility, right? So this can push couples into rushed decisions before they're emotionally or financially ready. So this affects the long term marital satisfaction, right? And finally, there is social standing. Caste, religion, class, community, the reputation around it play a huge role in match selection. So these unspoken rules, right, they can limit the choices. They create guilt, or they increase the pressure while choosing outside the expected circle. And they shift the focus from personal compatibility to social approval. So these factors, often shape decisions quietly, even when people don't openly acknowledge them, right? So next slide. We have a short poll here. Let's take a quick poll to understand, according to you, what are the pressure points that concerns you the most? Is it finances, rituals, timelines, or social standing? Right. Asta says timelines. Timelines, right. A, C, and D, right. Almost all are an issue, right? A and D, finance, right. So, now you kind of get to know what the pressure points are, right? Next slide, please. Right. So, it's important to talk about the dual role in marriage, because arranged marriage operates at two levels. First is couple level, the second is family level. So this couple level includes emotional connection, right? The communication style, shared values, personality match, and the mutual attraction. So when partners genuinely understand each other, they feel emotionally safe together. So the couple level compatibility is very strong, right? Now, at family level, This includes, traditions, expectations, financial agreements, involvement style, and social alignment between the families, right? So here, when both families share similar cultural practices, boundaries, and ways of functioning, the family level compatibility is very strong. But how true compatibility, in arranged marriage, that happens is when, it's only achieved when both levels align together. So the couple feels emotionally and personally connected. At the same time, the families are aligned in values, expectations, and lifestyle. So when these two layers support each other, the relationship feels stable, respectful, and easier to navigate. Right? If one layer is strong and the other isn't, conflict arises later. Right? That's something to think about. Next slide, please. So now let's look at the realities of arranged marriage, because arranged marriage also comes with strong positives like family support system which provides security and guidance. So in many arranged marriages, families they remain actively involved, offering emotional reassurance, practical help, and a safety net during the early marital challenges. This support can reduce stress, strengthen the couple's sense of stability, right? So they have that security and guidance. Another one is shared values, which create stability in the relationships. Because arranged marriages usually pair individuals with similar cultures or religion or lifestyle backgrounds, right? So couples often, experience fewer clashes in their core belief because they come from similar background. So this alignment builds long-term harmony and easier decision making, right? And the third one is lower stigma in communities that favor arranged marriages. So this means, couple who often feel socially accepted because arranged marriage fit the cultural expectations, right? So they face less criticism, fewer questions, and greater public support, which can reduce pressure during the early years of marriage. And finally, built in guidance from elders for navigating challenges. So this means, elders who have experienced long marriages themselves, they often step in with wisdom, advice, and cultural knowledge, right? So their involvement can help the couple resolve conflicts or understand traditions and feel emotionally supported. So when individuals and families align well, that's when arranged marriages can be deeply fulfilling and stable, right? So now let's have a look at a case example. Next slide, please. Yeah. So let's look at a quick scenario here. Rohan and Priya met through family networks. So their families prioritized financial security, but the couple themselves valued emotional connection. Over time, the family's focus on material stability clashed with couples' desire for emotional closeness. So, this illustrates how mismatched expectations, right, at family level versus individual level, that can create strain even when the couple genuinely like each other, right? Next slide, please. So we have a small reflection on what we just saw, right? To summarize, open conversations around expectations, both family expectations and personal needs, they are very essential before committing. And a healthy balance between cultural values and individuality leads to more stable relationships, right? And arranged marriages, they work best when compatibility exists both at couple level and at family level, right? And understanding the real dynamics behind arranged marriage allows individuals to make clear, confident, and empowered decisions. So remember, guys, the goal is not to choose the family and self, right? It's to create a space where both can coexist, right? So if there are any questions, you may ask now. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Simran. She can take up the next part of the presentation.
Alright, thank you, Sanjeevni. Hi, everybody. I will be talking about this segment on compatibility beyond kundalis. So this segment is essentially going to talk about some, facets of your relationship, or your uh, you know segments of your relationship with your partner, where you would like to have similar expectations and have some values or inherent tenets that make you connect with your partner better. All right, before we start talking about this segment, there is this quick question on what are three non negotiables for you in a partner. You could also name only one or two if you have something in your mind. Feel free to use the chat box. Right, Vani says good salary. So, financial security is something that is important for you in a partner. Kanvi says communication, emotional understanding, and passion for work, stable career, emotional maturity, respect. Right. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. These are very important points and very important things that all of us look for in a life partner. Let's follow this up by understanding what's one fear that you have about marriage. Would anybody like to share something they feel uncertain about, or something they feel, there's a lack of clarity around when it comes to thinking about marriage? All right. So let's talk about why compatibility matters and why it truly counts. So, partnership goes far beyond romance or the initial excitement of getting to know somebody. So, romance is beautiful, but it cannot sustain a relationship together on its own. What truly sustains a marriage is how well two people can work as a team in the everyday realities of life. So, when two people have mismatched values or very different ideas about how life should function, it slowly creates long term stress. These aren't dramatic conflicts, they're the quiet, ongoing tensions that keep showing up again and again. On the other hand, when a couple is compatible, they navigate conflicts much more constructively. They may still disagree because that's a very normal part of any relationship, but they're able to understand each other's perspective and find solutions without damaging the relationship. Shared values and mutual respect also help keep the bond strong, even after the initial spark or excitement that naturally fades. What keeps a relationship fulfilling over time is not constant passion, but consistency, trust, and emotional safety. And finally, when expectations are discussed clearly upfront, things like lifestyle, family involvement, boundaries, finances, all of it prevents misunderstandings later in the marriage. Having clarity early on makes couple feel more aligned, confident, and grounded as they move forward together. So, which area feels most important for you to align with your future partner? Feel free to use the chat box and drop your responses in. Right, I see transparency, honesty, there's career, goals, passion, loyalty, empathy, freedom, shared values, emotional intelligence, compatibility or shared individualism, shared values on kindness and empathy, freedom and growth. Right. All very important and relevant things in life that you would like to align with your future partner. Thank you, everybody, for sharing that. So this brings me to talk about, certain facets of life that you would like to, have a similar thinking on or have an alignment with your future partner. So when we think about compatibility, one of the deepest layers people often overlook is something called life alignment. This simply means, do our lives move in the same direction at a pace and style that feels natural for both of us? So let's start with lifestyle habits, the everyday rhythms that shape our emotional climate. Are you an early riser while the other person is a night owl? Do you enjoy a quiet, routine oriented life while they thrive on spontaneity? Do you prefer hosting friends often or do you recharge in solitude? These may seem like small things on paper, but over time, these habits decide whether home feels peaceful or strained. The goal isn't to match perfectly, it's to understand whether your rhythms can blend without constant friction. Next comes financial attitudes. This is one of the biggest mismatch expectation areas in arranged marriage setups. It's really about how much you earn, it's about how you think about money. Is one person a saver and other a spontaneous spender? Does the does one value financial security while the other prioritizes lifestyle and experiences? So when financial attitudes align, planning feels more collaborative. When they don't, even minor decisions can turn stressful. Healthy couples talk about money early, openly, and respectfully. Another layer of alignment is values, the invisible rules each person lives by. Values around honesty, respect, communication, gender roles, responsibility, and independence shape every interaction in a marriage. If one person values emotional openness while the other is more guarded, misunderstandings can happen. If one values equality and shared decision making and the other expects traditional roles, conflict may arise. So, a strong relationship builds on shared values, not forced compromise. So, spirituality is another dimension. This could be religious belief, personal practices, or simply a worldview. For some people, prayer, rituals, temple visits, or meditation are core parts of their identity. For others, spirituality is private or minimal. Alignment here doesn't mean identical beliefs, but mutual respect and space for each other's practices. And finally, we have the long-term goals, the bigger picture direction of your life. Do you want children? If so, when? Are you planning to settle in a particular city? Is your career something you want to grow aggressively, or do you prefer balance? Do you dream of a certain lifestyle, travel, entrepreneurship, community life, or something quieter? When these aspirations align, the relationship feels like a team effort, and when they don't, resentment slowly builds because one feels held back or misunderstood. Life alignment isn't about finding someone who's a carbon copy of you. It's about finding someone whose core direction resonates with yours, someone who walks with you, not opposite to you. Right. Did anybody raise their hand? Any question?
Yep, ma'am. I wanted to ask a question.
Right. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, actually, in arranged marriages, actually, the girl have to go to the in-laws' house, and she kind of is under the influence of in-laws, so she kind of not get the chance to take her decisions of her own life, like for even children or other of these. Like she's influenced by the in-laws, like more often. So
Right, Nancy. What exactly your question is around such a family setup?
I wanted to ask like how to make a balance, when the girl is alone in the in-laws house, how to navigate that their choice and our choice aligns, and in everything like family planning, if that is so.
Right. Thank you so much for asking that question, first of all, Nancy. So, all of these things that you mentioned, all of these things are something that can be openly and respectfully discussed with your partner and, at a bigger, on a bigger picture with the families. Understanding how decision making is done within the family, understanding how much footing is allowed by each person in their say for a certain, family member. These are all discussions which are encompassing life alignment, so to say, and it is very important to discuss all of these beforehand to understand, do you feel like you're on the same page with your potential partner and a potential family. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, that makes sense.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. We'll move forward then. So, when we talk about choosing a partner, one of the biggest pressures people feel, especially in arranged marriage setups, is a focus on appearance. Society, families, and even our own internalized ideas often place a huge amount of importance on how somebody looks. But when we really think about long term partnership, appearance is actually one of the least reliable predictors of relationship happiness. The truth is simple: looks fade, but values last. What keeps a relationship stable and fulfilling over 10, 20, or 30 years isn't surface attraction, it's qualities like kindness, patience, emotional safety, and respect. These deeper traits influence how partners treat each other, how they handle conflict, and how they support each other through life challenges. Another factor is to acknowledge societal pressure. We live in a world where beauty standards are constantly pushed on us through media, through comparison, and often through family expectations. Comments like she should be fairer, or he should look taller, or what will people say can make individuals feel inadequate or judged. But these standards rarely reflect what actually makes a marriage work. They create anxiety, not compatibility. Breaking free from these pressures allows us to see the other person for who they are, not how they fit into a checklist. Redefining attraction is an important step in this process. Real attraction grows from shared values, emotional connection, and the way someone makes us feel. When you notice how gently a person speaks, how responsibly they act, how they treat people around them, that becomes far more meaningful than a perfect appearance. Emotional intimacy, safety, and support create a kind of attraction that deepens with time rather than fading. Family comments and taunts around appearance can also be very damaging. They can lower confidence, create unnecessary fear, and push people to evaluate potential partners based on the wrong terms. It's important to remind ourselves that these comments are rooted in old beliefs. When we focus on deeper qualities like character, maturity, and respect, it becomes easier to stay grounded and less affected by external opinions. And finally, attraction grows in ways we don't expect. As two people share experiences, supporting each other through challenges, laughing together, building memories, something shifts. Emotional intimacy creates its own form of beauty. Many couples say that over time they found each other more attractive because they understood each other better. Shared experiences, consistent care, and teamwork create a connection far stronger than physical appearance. So when we are thinking about compatibility, try to look beyond appearances. Focus on the qualities that truly matter in building a stable, loving, long-term relationship. The outer layer may catch your eye, but it's the inner world that builds a life with your partner. So, what's one expectation you believe couples must talk about before marriage to avoid misunderstandings? Anybody? Children, the non negotiables they have set, kids and household chores. Right. Thank you so much for responding. So, when two people come together, whether through arranged marriage or by choice, one of the most important steps for long term harmony is having clarity about expectations. Most relationships don't struggle because of lack of love, they struggle because key expectations are never discussed. When we assume instead of communicate, misunderstandings grow quietly until they become major conflicts. So let's talk about the core areas that couples need to clarify together. The first is intimacy, both emotional and physical. Every person has a different comfort level with touch, affection, and communication. Talking openly about what makes each person feel connected, how they like to give and receive affection, and what pace they are comfortable with helps prevent a lot of anxiety and confusion later. Then we have family involvement. In many Indian contexts, this is a big one. Will the couple live independently or with family? How involved will parents be in decisions? What are the expectations around caregiving, festivals, or boundaries with in laws? When these things are left unspoken, they often become major stress points later. Next is independence. A healthy relationship allows each person to maintain their sense of self. Things like personal space, career, goals, friendships, and hobbies. If one person expects constant togetherness while the other values alone time, it can lead to frustration. Clarifying this upfront creates a respectful balance. Another important area is parenthood. Whether or not to have children, when to have them, and how to raise them, these are life shaping decisions. Parenting styles, discipline, responsibilities, all of these need conversation so both individuals feel aligned rather than pressured. Finances are another area many people avoid, but they play a huge role in relationship stability. Partners need clarity on budgeting, saving habits, spending priorities, and whether money will be managed jointly or separately. Financial transparency builds trust. We also need to consider household responsibilities, a point that a lot of you mentioned. Who does what feels fair, and what expectations exist around gender roles. When this is not discussed, people often default to assumptions from their families of origin, which may not match their partner's reality. And finally, we have social life. How often to go out, how much time to spend with friends, comfort with social events, travel plans, and community engagement. These all influence the rhythm of daily life. When couples take the time to discuss these domains, they create a foundation of clarity, and clarity leads to more emotional safety. They help couples move through life with understanding, alignment, and fewer surprises. The more open and honest these conversations are at the beginning, the smoother and more fulfilling the journey becomes. All right. There's one more question on understanding the two traits you cannot compromise on and the two you could feel flexible about with your partner. Uh, right, Nancy, please go on.
Ma'am, actually, there is a very less time given to the couple in arranged marriages in some places. There's not really open communication between them. That relationship is kind of rushed into marriage, and these topics are sometimes overlooked, ma'am, and not kind of discussed openly. And there is also parental pressure to not discuss too openly and be like too bold for the family of the in-laws kind of.
Right, thank you for that question, Nancy. While arranged marriage as a setup can feel very rushed, uh, people do start looking for their partner a long time before they finally find somebody who they feel like they might align with a little bit. So, when you start looking for a partner, it is very important to beforehand have an idea about what you value most and what are some things that that stand out for you as very important in with respect to compatibility. So when you know all of that, you explore things from that perspective in that direction, and it can help you meet people who might be more in sound with how you function. And when such things come up, and when families also align a little bit on value systems, it might give both the families a little more comfort in talking about things. And tomorrow when we meet, we will be talking about how you can communicate about such things and around expectations and value systems. So you'll have more idea about, even in a rush timeline, how you can talk about this in a way where respect is not compromised. I hope that answers your question. All right. So the two traits that does anybody else have a question?
Yeah, I had a question on all these things that's being discussed. So one of the major things or major red flags that I've seen in an arranged setup is, the girls are expected to be very submissive in the whole communication part of the marriage. If at all you'll have to openly talk, like for example about finances, you're expected to dial dial down on the tone, try to present the same question in a very indirect manner. Either go through your mother because she's softer. If you go through your dad, then it is considered to be a little rude or really upfront. And if you get barely any chances to talk to the guy, but on the other hand, even if you do try and talk to him, he's going to discuss about the conversation in his house, and he's going to bring this up. She's talking a lot about money, she wants to know all of this. And the rude side of the thing is, maybe he's not financially stable, or maybe he doesn't have a good enough salary to match yours. Sorry, I'm a little older in the crowd. I can see a lot of young ones. I'm a little older, so when I'm trying to navigate all this, um, they generally tend to think that you're too much, or you're not the right match only because you're asking questions. Your parents, I mean, from the girl's side, the girl's parents are like, you're anyway getting a little older, why don't you just let it be? All of these will self adjust on its own. But time and again, data has proven that these things don't self adjust, and there is a very good chance that the guy wants to pry on your money or take your money and do what he wants, or maybe experiment with it. I am bringing this topic up because in the very first slide, I mean, in one of your first slides, you mentioned that families, in an arranged marriage, families get involved. And one of the reasons, the advantages of families getting involved is that they provide you that cushion, the financial support that you need. In many cases, I've seen that maybe initially for the marriage they pull in money, but after that, once the couple is together, they do not want to interfere within the couple's finances. You're supposed to take care, and the burden falls on the girl. So how do you navigate this labyrinth, this submissiveness, this coming through as too much in communication where finances are involved with a stranger?
Right. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Sanjana. I'm sure a lot of us can, understand and see that this can be a reality for a lot of us. So, as you mentioned, that according to you, these are some red flags that do stand out in exploring and understanding how you're finding a partner. So, when we're doing value alignments and life alignments, it is not only to see if you meet the person in between or you find a balance. Sometimes understanding what your expectations are around finding a partner can also help you detect these red flags and see if it is something that you'd like to move forward with. So, if you notice that according to you, the communication style in a family is something that you don't align with, or independence is something that is very important to you as a non negotiable in your life and in your life as with somebody as a partner, then these might be some things that you might want to have less flexibility upon. Similarly, there might be some other things that might be negotiable for you, which I will be discussing moving forward. So, it is just about finding and understanding what are some things that you feel are negotiable and what are some things that you feel are non negotiable.
But
And then,
sorry to cut you off, but do women, in your opinion, because I'm considering you to be an expert in the whole field, do you think we, as a lot of women are there, so women should be submissive in the whole thing and should not, upfront ask all these questions?
Right. So the whole point of this workshop is to navigate how you do talk about these things with that kind of respect and understanding that if you can find a way to align these values, or if you can find a way to talk with somebody about this, is only when you are able to take a more protective and firmer step with respect to your future. So if you do feel like you do not feel comfortable enough talking to somebody about this, or you gauge that the other family or your potential partner is not comfortable talking about certain things, that might stand out as something for you to consider if that person is somebody you'd like to move forward with or not. From what I'm trying to say is, it depends on people's value systems. It's again about how much flexibility you would want to have with communication, and how much flexibility you would like to have with your value systems. So, if you see that some of your values are getting compromised, which you do not like to have compromised, then it might be a time for you to rethink certain things. And if you feel like even after talking, you've gotten the clarity that your value systems or your life is not getting compromised to a point where you feel submissive, as you say, it might be something that could be navigated more you know thoughtfully with respect to finding the balance with the family of your partner and with your partner.
Okay, thank you.
Right. All right. We'll move forward then. We'll take up more questions in the end, so don't worry. Um, we'll quickly cover all of this, and then we'll take up more questions once we're done with our presentation. So, talking about the core values and negotiables, as I mentioned, it is easy to get caught up in preferences, things like favorite foods, hobbies, or personality quirks. But what actually determines long term compatibility are not these surface level traits, it's our core values. So, understanding the difference between core values and negotiable traits help us choose more wisely and avoid unnecessary conflict later. So let's start with the core values. These are the non negotiables that I'm talking about, the qualities that form the foundation of a healthy relationship. Values like honesty, respect, trust, and emotional safety. They include deeper beliefs about how to treat each other, how decisions should be made, and how you envision life. When these do not align, the relationship often experiences constant stress. No amount of attraction or shared interests can make up for a lack of basic respect or mismatched integrity. Core values also include life vision, things like attitude towards career, finances, children, or the kind of lifestyle you want to build. For example, if one person wants a quiet, independent life while the other wants a highly family integrated living situation, that's not a small disagreement. That's a values level difference that will affect daily life. Then we also have cultural or religious alignment. For some people, these are the core values. For others, they are flexible. What matters is knowing where you stand. If your cultural practices, festivals, or spiritual beliefs are deeply important to your identity, then compatibility in this area matters for long term harmony. Now, let's look at negotiable traits, the things that are more flexible, adaptable, and not worth ending a relationship over. These include hobbies, interests, food choices, routines, or even minor habits. Whether someone loves sport or prefers books, whether they're introverted or extroverted, these differences can be accommodated when deeper alignment is strong. Even personality quirks like being messy or being overly punctual or a little forgetful can be managed when the relationship has trust and respect. Couples are surprisingly resilient and adaptable when the foundation is solid. This brings us to an important mindset, the growth mindset. No two people will align on every point, and that's okay. What matters is whether the relationship has the safety and willingness to grow through differences. When core values match, when there mutual respect, emotional maturity, and shared long term goals, couples can navigate negotiable differences with humor, patience, and teamwork. So, the real question we should ask ourselves is not do we like the same things, but do we align on the things that truly matter? Because long term compatibility is not about being identical, but about sharing the same compass. Core values keep the relationship steady, while negotiable traits add color and uniqueness. Knowing the difference helps us choose wisely, communicate clearly, and build a stronger partnership. So, compatibility is more than chemistry, it's about shared foundations. So, look beyond the surface traits and discuss openly, reflect deeply, and align intentionally. Over to you, Ahil.
Thank you, Simran. Good afternoon, everyone. Now we are going to explore one of the most important phases of arranged marriage, which is the first meetings and early conversations. So, these early interactions often set the tone for how two people understand each other, build comfort, and decide whether they actually want to move forward in their lives or not. So our goal here is to understand how to prepare for first meetings, how to start meaningful conversations, what topics to explore gradually, and what common mistakes to avoid, and ultimately how to build clarity without pressure. Next slide. Okay. So now let's start with an activity. So for our first activity, I would like you to reflect on this question. What's more important to discuss first? Career goals, family expectations, or past relationships? What's your opinion on this? Career goals. Okay. Absolutely. Anyone else? There are no right or wrong answers, obviously. Career goals, family expectations, past relationships. Okay. Family expectations. Right. So different people have various different opinions on this. That's great. Anyone else would like to share? Okay, right. Also get to know each other's life stories, career goals. Yeah, absolutely. You all are absolutely on point. So moving on, now we'll talk about the first impressions, which are like which includes more than appearances, right? So when we think of a first meeting, we often imagine the pressure of looking perfect or saying the absolutely the right things. But the reality is that arranged marriage is not about putting on a performance. It's about showing who you actually are, right? So, how can you prepare for that? So, first, reflect on what you want and value. Clarity creates confidence. Secondly, present yourself authentically. Trying to appear ideal often breaks down in later stages. And lastly, calm your nerves. This is actually a conversation. It's not a performance. It's not a job interview where you have to be on spot or perfect all the time, right? And during the meeting, there are a few simple practices that you can adopt that can go a long way. So the first one is being punctual. It shows that you are respectful, showing genuine curiosity about the other person instead of just talking about yourself, and paying attention to things like comfort level, humor, and openness. These actually matter more than perfection, or these actually matter more than holding the ideal image as the first impression. So you have to remember the first impressions are not about making someone like you. They're about seeing whether you can connect, right? Okay, so next slide. Right. So now we'll talk about emotional readiness before the meeting. So before you even meet someone, check in with our emotional state. Okay, so next point. Okay, so before the meeting, be aware of your mindset. Be open and not guarded. Okay, ask yourself whether you're going in with an open mindset and not guarded, which is not guarded or defensive. Okay, am I prepared? Then ask yourself, am I prepared to listen more and talk less? Am I able to let go of the pressure of creating a perfect impression? And finally, can I accept that the first meeting might be a little awkward, and that's normal? Because the first impressions is here in this case, it can be the fact that the first impression is not actually the last impression. It can be a little awkward because obviously it's a big decision, right? It's obviously okay to feel a little awkward in the first impression or in the first meeting. So emotional readiness is what allows the other person to see the real you, not an anxious or rehearsed version of you. If you are rehearsing in your mind that okay, I'll say this, I'll say that, I'll be like this, I'll be the perfect person. So oftentimes you'll put too much pressure on yourself, and you'll uh, like basically you might face stuff like performance anxiety, and you might feel even more anxious, even more awkward. The key here is to be yourself and not try to be someone perfect or someone who is absolutely ideal for the other person. Next slide. Okay. So meaningful conversation. So in early meetings, many people jump straight into externals like job, location, family. These are important, of course, but deeper connection actually comes from understanding each other's inner world. So some great questions to explore gently over the first few conversations might include, the first question might include, what values matter most to you, right? This is how you discover the other person. What are their values? What are their beliefs? It's very important because this is, I believe, it's the foundation for building trust and for building connection further in on long term basis. Next question. Okay. So how do you define partnership? How do you, sorry, how do you, what makes you feel supported? Right. So what makes you feel supported, what makes you feel that you've got the support. Exploring that also is important. And next, lastly, how do you define partnership? So these questions can reveal character, temperament, and expectations far better than the surface level topics. It's obviously very important to go over the surface level topics, like I said, job, location, family, and whatnot. Okay, did someone raise their hands? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Um, Sir, can you just translate these in Hindi? Like, if we practically want to use them, if someone is Hindi speaking, sir, can you, these three questions, can you say them in like Hindi language?
Okay, right. I'll definitely try. I'll give my best. So the first question, what values matter most to you? So यहाँ पे आप पूछ सकते हैं कि कौन से values, like आपके beliefs क्या है, आप कैसे कैसे views hold करते हैं, ठीक है? ऐसे करके you can obviously ask. The second question, what makes you feel supported, ठीक है? So ऐसे आप पूछ सकते हैं कि आपको आपको support के लिए क्या लगता है कि हाँ क्या जरूरी है आपके लिए. This is something you can ask. एंड पार्टनरशिप के लिए आपको क्या लगता है कि पार्टनरशिप जो होता है एक दूसरे का साथ देना और ये सब कैसे हो सकता है, आपके लिए इसका मीनिंग क्या है. दिस इज जस्ट अ बेसिक रफ ओवरव्यू which I feel you can roughly translate into Hindi, right? So you can obviously do it on your own, you can obviously use your own language, use your own way, but the basic thing, the basic foundation of these questions are these only. I hope that helped. Okay, great. So, like I said, these questions reveal character, temperament, and expectations far better than the surface level topics, because even though they are important, the surface level topics like job, location, and family, these actually go deeper. These can, in the long term, prove to be way more important than just the surface level topics. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's a small poll activity. So, in the first few meetings, what matters most for you to understand about the other person? What do you think here? There are a few options: A, values and beliefs; B, future goals and career plans; C, family dynamics; views on money; and D, views on money, marriage, and lifestyle. A and D, okay, values and beliefs, views on money, marriage, and lifestyle. Okay, A, C and D, family dynamics, okay. Values and beliefs and family dynamics, C, A, and D. Right, so there are a lot of people opting for the options A and D. C is also there. Right, right. That's great. All of these are really important. Like all of these four pointers are important. It just differs from person to person. It just depends on you. Which one do you value the most? Right. So thank you for sharing your opinion on this. Next slide. Okay. So now it's a very important chapter. So past relationships, past chapters, and present clarity. So, one of the most sensitive topics in arranged marriage is past relationships. This is something that you don't need to bring up immediately. You can bring this up after you've developed a bit of a rapport or after you develop a bit of a connection. So, according to the guide, so when should you discuss it, right? Once mutual comfort develops. Like I said, you don't need to just be upfront about it in the excuse me, first meeting only. Once mutual comfort develops, once you're comfortable with that person, once you've attained that level of trust and comfort, you can definitely, bring this up. You can float the idea of discussing this topic. Next question: how should you discuss it? So it should be done with honesty, but also while maintaining boundaries, right? You share whatever you want to share with complete honesty, right? You do not leave any kind of gray area, but it's up to you how much you want to share at a certain point of time. If, let's say, if you're discussing about your past relationships and you just decide that, okay, the level of trust and level of comfort I've established so far, I only feel like I can share this much with this person. And if the person insists for you to, go ahead and, go into it deeper, you can definitely say in a polite but firm way, affirming that it's very important, so that to maintain the boundaries so that I don't feel awkward. uh, and lastly, the last question that you can ask: so why should you actually discuss it? Because transparency builds trust. If you like go ahead and see that like if you do avoid this topic, right, further down the line, 9 out of 10 times, maybe majority of the times, it is bound to come up in some way or the other. Then either of you or your partner, like whoever it is, might feel deceived. There might be gray areas in the relationship, and then the other person might feel betrayed. So to avoid all these things, it's definitely very important to you get ahead of it. You go one step ahead of it and clear it out before anything goes out in the long term. If in the initial stages, like I said, it's not something that you need to discuss in the first or second meeting either. Once you have developed comfort, you can discuss that. And if you see that once you discuss that, the other person is like, no, these are non-negotiable for me, I cannot engage in someone with a past history such as yourself. Let's say, like, hypothetically, if a situation like this arises, then if that for that person that is a deal breaker, okay, so then you might also need to rethink, like you might also need to refocus your priorities and stuff. Because if that is a deal breaker for that person, like, if it might break off in the initial stages, but it's that is actually better than getting committed, moving on to have a good life in the long term, and then after a while, after many years, this comes up, and then both of you might feel confused, that both of you might feel confused, betrayed. There might be spite in the relationship, and it like goes on to create a flurry of problems which you can avoid if you just get ahead of it in the initial stages. So it's important to share enough to offer clarity, but not so much that it actually overwhelms the early stages of connection. If you just go ahead and share everything in the early stages, right, while the connection is not still 100% built, while the foundation is not 100% strong, you might risk harming that connection, harming that foundation. Let the trust build, let the connection build, let the foundation be strong, then eventually float it up. There is no rush or there is no hurry. Next slide. Okay. So conversations that count. There are a few, these are a few pointers. These are the few topics to discuss over time. As comfort builds across a few meetings, you can gradually explore these aspects of life, of your lives together. Next point. Yeah. The first one is money. So budgeting, independence, and shared goals and habits. This is crucial. Talking about money might feel awkward in the first stages, but here also it's important that once the comfort and once the mutual understanding has been developed, it's crucial to talk about budgeting, independence, and shared goals, because this might eventually turn out to be a deal breaker in the long run if you do not explore it in the beginning. Next point. Right. So lifestyle, social habits, travel preferences, and health choices. This is also a very important aspect to discuss. If you go ahead to live your life with a person who has different lifestyle choices, different social habits. Someone would like to be uh, at gatherings more or be at parties more than you do. If you do not supposedly like it, but your partner is like really into it, that is something you might want to discover before going ahead, and maybe find a compromise, and maybe find a middle point where you can also adjust to some things, your partner can also adjust to some things. It's very important. So whatever these topics are, all of these topics, the purpose is one thing only, so that you can find a mutual understanding or mutual ground. Next point. Yeah, so career priorities, relocation, work-life balance. This is again a very, very important concept. Most of the times, many times people overlook this. People just think that okay, we have feelings for each other, we are in love, we have this connection, so we'll just go ahead. But they do not discuss about these points like priorities, relocation, work-life balance. If supposedly someone you or either the person you're getting engaged with or married to has a career which demands a lot of relocation. There is no stability when it comes to living in one place. So it might turn out that you this is a deal breaker, this is a non-negotiable for you, so you have to be aware and wary of that. So these topics actually reveal compatibility in day-to-day living. Okay, this actually measures how compatible you can be with your partner, which is just as important as emotional connection. Next slide. Okay. So as things move forward, it's important to explore long-term expectations, not on day one, maybe, but at the right pace, at the right time. These might include, the first point is, next point. Yeah. So marriage expenses. So who decides what and how? Okay. So who takes decision when it comes to expenses? Who marriage expenses? Who decides that, and how do you decide that? The next point. Yeah, children. So this is again a very one of you, I think, brought this up in the initial stages of the presentation, that what about children? If and when you would like want to have it, someone might be really insistent on having children. Someone might not have the priority of having children in their initial stages. They might want to focus on other things. And if you both are on the same page of having children, so what are the parenting values that you might decide to adopt? If the two of you have different parenting values and beliefs, then that might lead to conflict, that might lead to differences, and that in turn would like confuse your future child, right? Next point. Okay. So in-laws. So what are the boundaries, expectations, and living arrangements when it comes to in-laws? So when you're marrying a person, it's not like you're only marrying that person. The family gets involved. Like in most cases, family gets involved too, right? So you have to judge how much their involvement should be, right? What should the boundaries be? What should their expectations be? What should the living arrangements be? So that you can come to a mutual understanding, so that there is no scope of conflict between you and the other person involved. Next point. Intimacy. Again, this is a very important topic. If this can be discussed only when once you're comfortable with that person, once you trust that person, and the basic foundation is laid. Even though in the first time you talk about it, you might feel awkward, but it's very important to go through it, so as to ensure that you and your partner and your potential partner should be compatible. You should be on the same plane. So comfort, communication, and consent. Okay, these are the three most crucial things that falls under the umbrella of intimacy. Again, intimacy conversations happen later. They do not happen in the initial stages. They happen once trust and comfort are built. So having these conversations early on, but not too early on, helps avoid misunderstandings in the future. Next slide. Okay. So what are some of the common mistakes that you might want to avoid, right? These are the few patterns people often fall into during early meetings. So rushing sensitive topics. So like we discussed some of the topics here, like intimacy and whatnot. So this entails being a sensitive topic, right? So if you rush into topics like this without establishing a good comfort zone or a certain level of trust, this might create pressure and discomfort. Next is overanalyzing first impressions. Remember that people are often nervous. You and even the other person, it's not just you, even the other person, every single person involved in the meeting is actually nervous. Some people are more nervous, some people are less nervous. So, overanalyzing first impressions, before you try to overanalyze them, try to keep this in mind. Next point is talking more than listening. You actually learn more when you listen. You talk about yourself. That is absolutely great. You put out your priorities. You talk about your goals, values, and whatnot. But it's equally important that you listen, because if you only talk about yourself and you don't listen, you're not giving the other person or the family members of the other person scope to talk about themselves and be open about themselves. In and conversely, that would mean that you are not able to get to know them more comprehensively or in a more detailed manner. The more you know them, the better the chance, the better the like the option to gain or develop more compatibility and trust and comfort. So pretending to be ideal, this is like the first thing I think I mentioned when it came to my part. So this leads to misalignment later. If you try to fake your personality, if you try to seem to be the most perfect person, you cannot hold that throughout the rest of your life, because you are planning to spend the majority of your life with this person, right, down in the long run. So if the first impression is of you is someone which is actually not you to your core, then that might cause misalignment, that might cause like confusion in the other person. So it's the best safest bet is to actually, you know, be yourself. Try not to be this perfect person. We are all human beings, we all come with flaws. Nobody in this world is absolutely perfect, right? And lastly, ignoring red flags. This is again a very crucial, a very vital mistake that many people often end up doing. So discomfort, disrespect, emotional unavailability, secrecy, these are some major red flags. And if you tend to avoid these points, and if you tend to be like, it's okay, we'll just deal with those later, then it's just, you know, you're taking a big of a risk, because these are actually red flags. If you try to, if you see that the person is secretive, way too secretive, even after a lot of meetings, that person is not sharing, you know, anything at all, not sharing, not being open. So that is a major red flag, because that person is not willing to, you are in a discussion to spend majority of your life with this person, but that person is not willing to open up to you even after multiple meetings, right? So this is something that you should keep in mind while before going ahead. So awareness of these points can help you stay grounded during the process. Next slide. Okay, so here are some of the takeaways, right? So let's wrap up with the key message of this part session. So, early conversations and an opportunity to build trust. It's not about holding the perfect image, it's the opportunity to build trust and comfort. Being honest, but also being tactful and respectful. You can be absolutely honest, right? You should be all absolutely respectful about it, but also you should try to maintain boundaries, right? Compatibility is discovered and not decided in one meeting. It's not like in the first meeting you go ahead and you come to a conclusion that okay, I'm not compatible with this person. That is not how you find out whether you are compatible with the person or not. It actually develops naturally, it actually happens over time, because it's obviously, if you're meeting a person for the first time, it's not like possible to know about that person, everything about that person in the first meeting. So compatibility can only be developed further more and more once you start getting to know that person better with every passing day. So most importantly, allow the connection to unfold naturally. Its connection cannot be done forcefully. It cannot be done in a planned, structured way. It comes completely naturally, and you should allow yourself to do that without putting too much pressure or constraint over yourself. So the arranged marriage process isn't about evaluating each other. It's about understanding whether two real imperfect people can build something meaningful together. This is something that you should, you know, keep in mind before going ahead. So that's it from my part. So thank you so much for listening. I'd be really happy to answer any questions or discuss any challenges. Right? If you guys have any questions, I'll just try to quickly go over it now before we move on to the next part.
Hi, Ahil.
Hello, Pallavi. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you that I understand all these points and consider these before going for marriage. But
Right.
according to my experience, all the, I mean, all the guys which I have met or have conversations over phone, they kind of don't understand these things which need to be considered. Some do not even understand ki what is this, and some try to understand, but they don't have any, opinions or any additions to so that I can think ki life for, for a better life we can discuss about these. So how to deal with them or what to do?
Okay, right. Thank you so much for asking this question. So the thing is, one thing you have to understand, that I understand it can get really frustrating, right? Because you are understanding what is crucial and what is important to go ahead before a marriage, right? You are
Yeah.
understanding what are the aspects that need to be discussed, and it's really frustrating to see that the other person is not understanding that. But one thing you have to understand is that you cannot expect everyone, or you cannot expect most of the people who come across you to understand those things, because unfortunately they don't. Unfortunately, many of the points discussed here are still a taboo to actually be discussed, right?
Right.
So you, if you feel it's necessary, if you feel it's actually important, or if you feel like it's worthwhile to try to explain to this person what it might be, you can definitely give it a shot. You can try everything on your part. It's not, ultimately it's not your responsibility to make them understand, right? You can, to as a person who would want to share a potential future with them, you can try. Okay, the only thing you can do here, you can try, you can maybe give it a shot. You can try to explain to them that why this is important, what is important, and why this is important, right?
Hmm.
If they are, if they turn out to be a good match for you, they will listen to you. Okay, they will try to understand. If not understand everything, at least they will put in efforts. If you see the people you're coming across, they're not trying to even understand you or even trying to put in any of efforts to talk about this, then you
Hmm.
might want to rethink and reconsider, and you might want to move on, because you have to stand your ground. I understand it might feel like frustrating at one point when you see that many people are not understanding what you're trying to say, but still you have to keep it in mind that if you do not stand your ground, if you budge from your non-negotiables that was discussed earlier, then you are the one who is making the sacrifice, not the other person.
But actually the main problem is कि I'm not even able to make these things understand to my family also, because they also think कि these are not very important, and you can't beforehand you can't just plan and everything. Arrange
Right.
marriage में ऐसा ही होता है, so I'm in a mess.
Right, right. I understand it's very difficult for you, why it's very difficult for you. But like I said, you can't really control how others think. You can try your best to let them know, but you can't really, unfortunately, you can't really change your family's output on this, right?
Hmm.
So if you spend most of your energy behind that, you would only be exhausting yourself only. So you have to find a way where, you keep your family in the light. Okay, you keep them aware, you try to explain to them at the point where you're seeing that they are not understanding anything after your best efforts. You just keep it to, you just, maybe you can just try to keep it to yourself, and in your mind you see what are the, non-negotiables, what are the negotiables, and you do your work, you do your part. Okay, it's not, like I said, it's not your job to convince other people, not your family or not your partner, because it's your life, you're going to be taking the major decision, right? So it's ultimately up to you. If you feel like your family or the other person is not understanding, then you can just take your decision with instead of trying to explain to them, because you have tried it already and it has not worked,
Okay, thank you.
right? Yeah, no worries. So then that's it on my part, so I'll just hand it over to Anupama right now.
Okay, all right. Hi, Parivi. Could you mute yourself? If you have any questions, you can always put it up in the chat box and our team will answer. All right. Okay, so now we look into premarital counseling. So this is about, preparing for marriage itself, not just planning the wedding. So we look into what is premarital counseling and how it can help us. Right? So next slide, please. Yeah. So talking about what exactly is premarital counseling. So it is a guided process where couples could get support in understanding each other better before they get married, right? So it's like a safe space to talk openly about important topics that can affect your married life. So during premarital counseling, couples usually explore key areas like communication, expectations, right, from each other, and how they handle conflict, and their approach to finances, and what kind of family roles do they imagine for the future. Now, these sort of conversations can help uncover things that might not come up in regular day to day chats, right? Now, the main goal is to basically help the couple build a more stronger foundation And by talking about these topics, such as communication, past relationships, expectations, how to handle conflict, or finances, you know, by talking about them early on, couples can improve understanding, reduce any sort of misunderstandings later on, and also create a healthier, more compatible long term relationship, right? So that's about premarital counseling. Moving on, we have a quick activity which is basically called as factor myth, right? So I'll read out a statement and you can respond with a thumbs up for fact and a thumbs down for myth. All right. So first we have, you only go to counseling when something's wrong. Okay, I do see a lot of thumbs down. Right, absolutely. All of you are right. It is a myth. Counseling isn't only for crisis. It can be used for, growth, any sort of clarity, or even for better communication, and, even to strengthen any sort of relationship, right? Even when things aren't going well. Next, we have love alone is enough to make a marriage work. Right. Okay. Okay. So you guys are correct. Yes, it is a myth. Now, why it is a myth? Because love is important, but on a daily basis, or in your daily life, it needs, what is required more is communication, or respect, or shared values, responsibility, and effort, right? So love is the foundation, not the full structure. All right. Okay. Then we have that, yeah, premarital counseling can benefit even healthy and happy couples. Okay, I see a lot of thumbs up. Right. All of you are right. That is a fact. Okay, moving on. Right. Now, another statement is counselors take sides or tell you what to do. Okay, all right, I did see it. Most of it, majority was a thumbs down. I did see a thumbs up. So this is a myth. Now, why it is a myth? Because counselors stay neutral. They don't blame or choose a side. What we aim to do is guide the conversation, help both people understand each other, and support a more healthier conversation or communication. Next, we have, yeah, even long-term couples can gain new insights through counseling. Okay, yes, we did. We're getting quite a lot of thumbs up. Right, absolutely. All of you are right. So that is a fact. Then we have marriage is no different than dating. What do you guys think? Is it a fact or a myth? Right, absolutely. That is a myth because, marriage brings a lot of new responsibilities, right? Like shared decision making, families, finances, and long term commitments. And it requires a lot of teamwork and maturity beyond the dating phase, right? So, yeah, thank you so much for your responses. Thank you so much for being so active. All right, now let's move on to the next slide where we do a little myth busting. So, let's just clear up a few common misunderstandings about premarital counseling. So, yeah. So, first of all, it is preventive, not corrective. So, premarital counseling is not only for couples who have problems, it is for anybody who wants to just improve their relationship. It is meant to prevent future issues by helping partners talk openly and understand each other before any sort of challenges arise. Right? For example, a couple might learn how differently they handle any sort of stressful situation. And talking about it early on helps to avoid any sort of misunderstandings later on in the married life. Right? Next, we have it's a neutral, safe space. So, counselors don't take sides or judge in premarital counseling. Their role is to basically guide the conversation, help both the partners express themselves, and make sure that both of them feel heard. Right? Then we have it focuses on communication, compatibility, and shared goals, not just conflict. So, all these sessions are about understanding each other's habits, your expectations, your dreams, and your daily routines. And it's more about building connection than fixing arguments. It's not just about conflict. Next, we have even the strongest, couples can use counseling to grow. So, healthy, happy couples also attend premarital counseling to basically plan their future, divide any sort of responsibilities, and learn better ways to support each other, right? So, it's like basically strengthening the foundation before building the house. All right. Moving on, we look into why it works, which is basically the evidence and the impact of premarital counseling. So, over the last few years, several studies across different countries have looked at how premarital counseling affects couples, right? And the results are pretty encouraging. So, first of all, it improves marital satisfaction. So, studies have shown that when couples attend premarital counseling, they usually feel more secure and stable in their relationship once they get married. So, what happens here is that they enter marriage with a more clear understanding of what to expect, how to support each other during challenging times, and how to handle daily life as a team. So instead of being overwhelmed by challenges later on in married life, they already have a basic roadmap for dealing with the problems or dealing with the challenges. Next, we have strengthens communication and understanding. So, counseling over here would teach the partners how to express their feelings, their needs, and concerns in a more healthy manner without, shutting down, getting defensive, or fighting. So, it also helps them understand how their partner communicates. That is, for example, one person might want to talk immediately when something happens or some issue comes up, while the other partner might need some more time to think about it, right? Or they might need some more time to calm down and then talk about it. So, learning how each other, deals with it or how each other wants to deal with a conflict will help prevent any sort of unnecessary conflict. Now, couples over here can also practice simple, communication tools that makes difficult conversations easier and, a little more respectful. Next, we have, premarital counseling definitely boosts confidence and readiness for marriage. So, what we do here is that we increase self awareness, right? You learn more about yourself and about your partner. And we also understand topics like roles, responsibilities, expectations, finances, boundaries, and how the family dynamics works more clearly, right? The ones that we discussed beforehand. And we look at how it works from from both perspectives. So that way it builds trust, emotional maturity, and the feeling that yes, we can do this, we can handle things together. And that sort of sense of readiness makes the transition to marriage much smoother. Next, we have it reduces future conflicts. So instead of waiting for problems to become big and overwhelming, we would basically help the couples identify small issues early on, right? So they learn how to resolve disagreements without blaming or escalating the situation. And because of these skills, they are less likely to face any sort of serious conflicts later on. Next, we have increases awareness and knowledge. So many couples enter marriage with assumptions or unclear expectations, right? So, counseling over here helps them understand what married life actually involves. Things like, daily routines, responsibilities, finances, family boundaries, and even emotional needs. So this sort of an awareness makes the transition into marriage much more smoother, right? Then we have again long-term impact. So studies have shown that couples who attend premarital counseling often have lower chances of serious conflicts later. Now it has also shown, linked to lower divorce rates, stronger emotional bonds, and a better long-term partnership skills. Because when couples start with clarity and tools to, navigate any sort of challenges or conflicts that might come up in the future, they're better prepared, for the ups and downs of married life, right? So overall, the research shows that when the couples, explore their expectations, their responsibilities beforehand and prepare together, they can start their marriage with a more stronger foundation. Next, we have why it matters in arranged marriage. So, again, in arranged marriage, couples often don't get a lot of time together before the wedding. And because of this, limited interaction, you don't get to discuss the actual important topics. Now, this is where premarital counseling can be very helpful, right? So, what happens over here, it gives the couple a safe, a more guided space to get to know each other better and to build comfort, step by step. And counseling over here also gives the couples the chance to talk about the important topics, early on, the ones that we saw earlier, right? Which are the values, the non negotiables, the future goals, the family expectations, and even the personal boundaries. So these are conversations many couples may not feel confident having on their own at the beginning. So we basically facilitate it. And another big benefit is that counseling, again, as I mentioned before, as we mentioned before, counseling provides a neutral space, right? Some topics can feel sensitive or awkward to bring up, maybe, finances, or the lifestyle differences. Now, in counseling, these discussions become much more easier because there is a professional there to guide the conversation without any sort of judgment. And it also helps prevent any sort of post wedding surprises, right? Those unexpected habits or expectations or differences that, show up later, and that can, cause any sort of tension in the life, marital life, or stress. Now, talking things out early helps the couples enter marriage with more clarity and more confidence. And while we are focused on arranged marriages, it is important to say that premarital counseling is helpful for all couples, whether it is arranged, love, marriage, or anything in between. Right? Any couple preparing for marriage can benefit from a better understanding, a stronger communication, and also a safer space to talk. All right, moving on. So, before we close today, let's just take a moment to reflect. So, what's one new insight you gained today, right? It could be something very small or something big. Anything that made you think or helped you understand the process better. You can raise your hand or you can type it out in the chat box. Okay, Kajal says not to discuss past relationships in the first meeting. Right, Chaya says how to um, prepare other one for premarital counseling if he didn't make themselves ready. Right. You can always suggest them, and a lot of the times they hesitate because they're scared of how the process would be, or they feel like they might be put at in a spotlight, or they might be blamed. So you can just clear that out. Even clearing out what how exactly premarital counseling works will encourage them to come for counseling. I hope I answered your question, Chaya. Right. Yeah. So can we see his questions to ask the self and the partner? Shivani says, I think marriage is way more than dating. Right. Okay. Right. So Adib says in arranged marriage, while couples are trying to align, so are the families, and both needs to be managed at different levels for success. Yes, absolutely. It's great to hear that you've had such great insights today. Next, yeah. So, did anything today make you see arranged marriage differently? Right? There are no right or wrong answer here. You can just share whatever feels, for you. If anything that made you see arranged marriage differently. Okay, Chaitra says, yeah, this workshop helped me feel less alone in being confused about arrangement setup, and it gave me hope there are ways that can help me navigate through this. Thank you so much, Chaitra. Yes, I know the whole concept of arranged marriage can be confusing, can be stressful, right? So thank you so much. Shivani says, arrange or love both requires way more efforts than we think. Right. Right. Okay, Kanvi, great. Great that you got it right. Yes. Okay, then thank you so much for sharing in your thoughts. It was really great. Thanks. So next, before we wrap up, here's a quick look at what we'll be exploring tomorrow. Thank you so much, Shivani. Yeah. So on day two, we will dive deeper into a more practical side of relationships. So we will look into, communication and conflict management. That is how to express yourself clearly and handle disagreements in a healthy way. We'll also look at boundaries, independence, and family over involvement, and how to balance your personal space along with family expectations. And we'll also explore emotional and psychological readiness, what it really means to be prepared for marriage on the inside. And we'll also look into more about premarital counseling. So tomorrow is going to be a little more hands-on and full of real life strategies that you can take home with you. So right, yeah. So thank you all so much for being here today and for participating with so much openness. We hope today gave you something meaningful to think about, right? So all of you guys, you can take care, have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you all tomorrow for day two. Now that we have come to the end, if you have any questions, you can feel free to stay back. If not, you're welcome to drop off. Thank you so much, Chaya, Kanvi, Adib. Um, yes, Twitter Priya. We can go back to the second last slide with the questions.
Can we get the recording of this?
Hi, yes, it is recorded and it'll take a while to be uploaded. Once it's uploaded in on our YouTube channel, we will be sharing the link in the WhatsApp group.
The latest ones are not there. I just saw on the YouTube. Latest videos are not there. Will you put it later? Will it
Yeah,
get
yeah, sure.
updated?
Yes, yes, it will be updated soon and will be uploaded. It'll take a while, but it will be uploaded within a week or two.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Twijapriya, I think that is Ahil, it's your section. I think it was your takeaway section.
Yeah, it was. So being honest but yet tactful. So what it means is that if you are talking about a sensitive topic, let's say like intimacy or past relationship, if you decide that at the point, if you decide that when you decide that you are comfortable talking about it or you can trust this person, you can share as much as you want. Okay, like keeping boundaries as much as you're comfortable sharing. That is being the tactful part, where you do not share everything at once just because you feel the need to. Okay, you probe into it, you go into it slowly instead of just rushing into it. And being honest part is where whatever you share, you be honest about it, keeping no gray areas in it. Because if you decide to share only 5%, that 5% which you share, be completely honest about it. Okay, so that there is no gray area left. I hope that helped. Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll see you all tomorrow for day two of our workshop. If you don't have any other doubts, feel free to drop off.